Frontier Town, the saga of the Roaring West. Frontier Town. El Paso, Cheyenne, Calgary, Tombstone. Frontier Town. Here is the adventurous story of the early West, the tamed and the untamed. From the Pecos to Powder River, Dodge City to Poker Flat. These are the towns they fought to live in and lived to fight for. Teeming crucibles of pioneer freedom. Frontier Town!
Not too far below the Continental Divide, nested in the narrow valley between the Red and the White Rivers, lies the boisterous, brawling frontier town called Dos Rios. That's where I come from. And the little shingle hanging outside my office above the livery stable reads Chad Remington, attorney at law. Now that you know who I am, maybe you're thinking a saddle-stop lawyer leads a pretty dull and humdrum life. But don't you ever believe it. No, sir, with the few good folks we have and the few bad ones out my way, life is pretty raw most of the time. Well, just take what happened to me about a month ago. Cherokee O'Bannon, who owns the livery stable, now that he's reformed from peddling his rattlesnake oil, came hot-footing up the rickety wooden steps which lead to my office, a copy of our weekly newspaper clutched in his hands.
Chad, just wait. Just wait here, my boy, and see this.
Well, what have you got there, Cherokee? A new formula for a patent medicine that is absolutely guaranteed to cure bad livers, cold shivers, sore withers, and heaves?
Nothing of the sort, nothing of the sort. Just read this, right here in this box at the front page.
Okay, here, let me have it. Oh, federal government throwing Tioga National Forest Reserve open for homesteading. Well, opening up the Tioga Reserve means turning over about 6,000 square miles for settlement.
Absolutely correct. And if you know that territory, you'll be as excited as I am. Why, Chad, I believe that Tioga country is even richer than the Dos Rios Valley.
Well, now, maybe I'm thinking a little slow this spring weather, but you're going to have to explain to me how it affects you.
Chad, you know me well enough by this time to know that I'm not a mercenary man. Why, a dollar doesn't mean any more to me than
your good right arm.
Than my good right? No, certainly not. The only real use I have for money is not for the real me, but for the other me, the drinking me. However, when I think of all the folks who are going to make that run into Tioga and settle there, it makes me realize they're going to need horses, and that a livery stable, getting in on the ground floor, should coin money, extended palm over closed digits. That's hand over fist to you.
Well, Cherokee, I'm inclined for once to agree with you. A livery stable there stands a fair chance of making some money. But now that you're established here, why take the risk of moving to some new place where you might fail?
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, they say.
Ooh.
And I'm a venturesome character. How about it, Chad? You haven't taken a trip in months. Why don't we both get down to that land rush and look the Tioga over?
Well, if for no other reason, I guess I'd better go just to keep you out of mischief. And anyhow, I must admit I get a real thrill out of seeing something like that. Oh, that's democracy really in action.
Chad, you've just warmed the cockles of my heart. And now, so the other part of me warms up, too, I think I'll repair to the tavern across the street for a toast to the future.
Be sure you make that just one toast. Well, if I'm going to make this trip with you, I'm going over to the judge's house and see Libby. Least I can do is tell her I'm going away. Shortly after sunrise, 2 mornings later, we crested the brow of the hill and looked down on one of the most satisfying sights man's eye has ever been privileged to see. Stretched out in a thin line for more than a mile were horses, mules, wagons, and even a few high-wheeled bicycles. Anything and everything a man or a family could ride in which would take them into the race for a piece of that rich Tioga land. Even Cherokee was impressed.
Chad, and this comes from my heart, this is the most inspiring sight I have ever seen.
Oh, it certainly is. History's being made right before our eyes this morning.
Can you explain to me exactly how this land rush works?
Well, as best I understand it, to make sure that everyone has an equal chance, that no one gets in first and stakes out the choicest land, the government's put up a barrier.
Yes, I see the barrier down there now.
Well, then you can see all the cavalrymen down there policing the barrier. Well, in just about 10 minutes, if my watch happens to be right, a bugler's going to come out and blow boots and saddles.
Boots and saddles, eh?
Yep, to warn everybody to get ready to start. And then a few seconds later, an officer will trigger a rifle. And that shot will be the start of the greatest land rush in history.
I never saw this many people all together at once, even when I was making a high pitch from the back of my medicine wagon. Men, women, children, dogs, look at them all.
Instead of looking at them, let's get down there with them before we miss the starting gun. Up there, fella, come on.
Well, darling, you excited?
Oh, Kent, this is a sight I'll never forget as long as I live. Never.
Then you're not sorry we left Atlanta?
Oh, I'll have my moments. But I guess I'm just a farm girl at heart. 320 beautiful acres to work with our own hands, to build into something
Oh,
that'll...
Sue Ellen, are you going to start that all over again? Well, there's plenty of time for ranching when I got the newspaper on a paying basis. Just think, the Tioga Weekly Sun.
Kent Ramsey, if you're so much in love with printer's ink, we might just well as stay there.
Oh, Sue Ellen, this is no time to start an argument. Hey, look at that, will you? Well, that big burly-looking man in the frock coat trying to push his way to the front of the line ahead of everybody else.
Why, look at him, Kent. He's got 2 bruisers with him. Probably his bodyguards.
Well, he better not try to push his way in front of us.
Take it easy, take it easy. There's plenty of land to go around. Come on, Fritz Whitey, let's get through here.
Kent, he is going to try to get ahead of us.
All right, come on, make a little room, Bill.
It's all right, brother. Just let us through.
Just a minute, friend. Where do you think you're going?
Whoa, hold that. Oh. You there. Oh, that you just said?
I said if you think you're going to crowd in ahead of us after we've been waiting up here in line for more than 14 hours, you've got another thing coming.
Kent, darling, be careful. He looks meaner than a cornered possum.
I beg your pardon, ma'am. Did you say something?
Yes, I did. I said you looked meaner than a cornered possum. And it wouldn't surprise me if you were even meaner than that.
Why, you, if you don't. We're polite to ladies, or at least we try to be.
Are you going to get to the back of the line where you belong? Or am I going to have to?
Are you going to have to what, my friend? Oh, you mean that? Well, if you're fool enough to want to drag your pop gun, go on. They say experience is the best teacher.
Kent, don't. Now leave that gun right where it is.
Let go of me, Sue Ellen.
Kent.
All right, all of you, keep your hands up where I can see you.
What?
All right, Cherokee, watch my horse.
And who do you think you are butting in here?
I'm the man who's been following you for the last 5 minutes, watching you almost run down people to get up to the front of the line. And I'm the man who's advising you to turn around and go back where you belong, at the rear of the line.
You give a lot of cheap orders with that 6-gun in your fist.
I don't need a 6-gun in my fist to see that those orders are carried out.
Huh?
Here, mister, you hold my gun.
Why, sure.
Now there's nothing in my fist but fingers. And I'm still telling you to move on.
Come on, Fritz. You too, Whitey.
But Laredo, you...
I'm taking your advice this time, mister. But I'm going to give you some advice in exchange. The whole of Tioga isn't so big that I won't be running into all of you again. Get around there, boy. Come on. Good.
Really, I haven't got words to thank you enough for what you did.
Most of the doing you did, ma'am. When you grabbed your husband's hand and stopped him from drawing his gun, one of those bodyguards of the man they call Laredo had time to get his out just in case his boss was too slow a draw. That's when I thought it was time for me to interfere.
Well, if you're rushing into Tioga with the rest of us, you stay right
Chad,
up
better
here.
get back on your horse. Here comes the bugler.
Oh, here it comes, honey. Get ready. Come on now, get all ready. Come on. Get ready to go.
Look, folks, I've got to get mounted. Riding horses, we'll have a better chance than you folks with your wagon. So Cherokee and I'll go ahead and you follow us. I'd feel better about Mr. Laredo if we were all together for a while. Come on, Cherokee, now's our chance. Let's go.
Get along there, boy. We're doing fine, Chad. Outdistance almost everybody.
Oh, I'm not complaining. I just had a flash of 2 or 3 riders cutting up through those trees to our right. Maybe a shortcut.
Through those trees? Yeah. And from here it looks as if one of those men is wearing a frock. Chad! Merciful Providence! Whoa there! Whoa! Chad, are you all right? Chad, where did that slug hit you? Great gilded Gilhooly! What am I going to do now? Here I am in the middle of no place, and Chad Remington's been shot clean off his horse.
We'll return to the exciting second act of our frontier town adventure in just about 1 minute. And now, Frontier Town.
Well, for a change, Cherokee had been right. I most certainly had been shot off my horse. A soft-nosed slug from a carbine hit my shoulder and spun me out of the saddle like a pinwheel. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on which end of the rifle you might have been, the wound is a little gory, but not too serious. After washing it and tying it up, we were able to continue. The greeting we'd gotten in the new territory thoroughly convinced Mr. O'Bannon that he didn't want to make his fortune in Tioga. But it was the man in the frock coat who answered to the name of Laredo that made me decide that I was going into Tioga Falls, the little settlement which had sprung up as a metropolis of the new region. So we sort of limped into town. Not finding anyone in the marshal's office, I decided the best place to look for my man was by checking at the office of the newspaper, the Tioga Weekly Sun.
Madam, would you be good enough to give us some information?
Oh, why, certainly. Well, it's you two again. Kent, my husband, and I followed you for several miles, but... Oh, dear, what happened to you?
Being in the newspaper office, let's just say it was a little accident.
Oh, Kent! Oh, Kent, darling, who do you think's here? My husband's back in the press room setting up part of this week's edition.
Are you calling me Sue Ellen? I thought I heard you. Hello! Am I glad to see you two again?
I don't say this from politeness. We're glad to see you and your wife alive.
After what happened to Chad, we didn't know if they'd gotten you, too.
If who all had gotten us?
That gent we tangled with the other morning at the starting line. The one in the frock coat.
Oh, you mean Loretta Jake Ellison?
Laredo Jake Ellison, huh? How come you know his name?
Oh, why, didn't you know? He's opened a bar, a hotel, and a gambling hall, and he's practically running this town already.
Did you say a bar?
Oh, now, Cherokee, you're incorrigible. Tell me, how'd you happen to open a newspaper office? From the looks of what you had in your wagon, I'd have thought you were going to get yourself a ranch.
Now, you see, Kent, you even look out of place in a newspaper office.
Well, gentlemen, it's a long story. But if you're really interested, sit down and I'll tell you.
Well, with a little friendly bickering between Sue Ellen and Kent Ramsey, we learned their story. I must say I didn't wholly disagree with Kent. The young fella had real ambition, and a newspaper can be a very influential voice in guiding the destinies of a frontier country. I also learned that Laredo Jake, even in this short time, had almost everyone in and around Tioga Falls either bulldozed or buffaloed, was starting to run the new town very much his own way. It was a wild little town, and I talked to a lot of people and found out nothing until about the third day when we were chewing the fat with Sue Ellen and Kent in their newspaper office.
Well, Chad, what do you think Loretta Jake's going to think of this editorial?
I don't think he's going to like it very much, Kent. But if I were you, and I'm not talking just as a lawyer, I'd take it a bit easy.
After all, Chad's got more of an axe to grind as far as that crook's concerned. And he's just biding his time.
Oh, you all argue with the man. Husband of mine or not, I seem to have no influence on him.
Well, she's afraid she'll be a widow before she's really a bride.
It's no laughing matter, Kent. When you're baiting a man like Laredo Jake Ellison, you're not out angling for catfish. You're going for shark. If you don't mind, Cherokee and I'll sort of hang around your office tomorrow after the paper comes out and the gentleman in question has had the chance to read what you think of him. What Kent Ramsey'd printed in the Tioga Sun would have raised the hackles on a more self-possessed person than Mr. Ellison. Well, we waited most of the day, and then late in the afternoon we saw him coming. Cherokee and I shifted our holsters just in case and waited for Laredo to say so.
Boys, I'll tell you why I dropped in. I come by to congratulate the Ramseys on getting out a fine fighting newspaper.
I believe that about as much as I believe that my rattlesnake oil cures lead poisoning.
You're wrong, my friend. Because in this last week, I've had my eyes opened.
You're lucky someone didn't close it.
Yes, sir, I've had my eyes opened. I never knew before what an enormous influence a newspaper can have in a town.
Mr. Ellison, we'd appreciate it if you'd stop beating around the bush.
All right, Mrs. Ramsey. Since finding out how important a newspaper is, I've decided to make you an offer to buy you out. An offer I don't think you'll refuse.
And suppose I do refuse, what then?
What then? I don't know. I can't make you sell out. But I don't think you're going to turn down an offer of $10,000.
Ellison, I wouldn't sell out to you for $30,000.
You know, I've always heard that literary men didn't have good business heads, but I never believed it before. Well, there's no use wasting any more time. I'll just be bidding you a very pleasant good day.
Well, how do you like that? Here I was sitting with my both fists cocked, all ready to go, and he talked so sweet butter wouldn't melt in his mouth.
I'll bet you he's got something up his sleeve.
So will I. Why, he's so persnickety mean, I wouldn't even throw him in a swamp to alligators.
My word. At this rate, Chad, we could spend 6 months down here trying to find something on that galoot.
Trying to find something on him.
Well, I guess we might as well confess it. That little accident which put a bandage on my shoulder when I rode into town, I'm afraid was no accident at all. But had been planned by Tioga's leading citizen, the right dishonorable Jake Ellison.
Chad hadn't been turned halfway around his saddle, he wouldn't be here to tell the story.
Wow, that vicious, sneaking, no good. Imagine, Kent.
You know what I got a good mind to do, Chad? I got a mind to run that story of yours about Laredo right smack on the front page of my next edition.
Nothing doing, Kent. Even as poor a lawyer as I am, I know we haven't got a case built against him yet.
Case? Why, y'all just said he tried to kill you.
We all just told you a little story. A story no one can prove.
Well, then how you going to prove anything against a contemptible crook like that?
By exercising a little patience. Now, for example, he wouldn't be so sure of himself that he'd come in here and offer to buy your paper if he didn't feel he had this town and this whole country right where he wanted it.
So?
So I'm expecting that life around Tioga isn't going to be as peaceful even as it has been. Now, there are too many gunslingers hanging around his cafe to be just waiting for Sunday to go to church, if we had a church.
I'll make book on that and give you 6-2 and even. Not bad odds either.
Suppose you're right, Chad.
Well, then, I think we can take a leaf out of Laredo's book and play it smart ourselves. When you got a newspaper, mister, plus a little patience, it shouldn't be too hard to prove that the pen is mightier than the sword. Now, I don't want to sound like an I told you so, but it wasn't very long before the Wells Fargo safe was blown. And 24 hours later, the stagecoach coming in from the north was held up. And then the very same night, two men who'd won at Faro never got home. Well, the next afternoon, Cherokee got himself a little Dutch courage at one saloon and then walked over to the place that Laredo Jake ran.
Well, Laredo, here's to you.
Here's to all of us, Fitz. Drink hearty.
Yeah. I cut up the Wells Fargo money today. $1,200 apiece.
You stick with Laredo, Jake, Ellis, and Fritz, and you'll be wearing... No, I wonder what this monkey wants. You looking for me, my friend?
No, sir. I was looking for a fellow called Fred. Mr. Ramsey down at the newspaper office asked me to find him.
Oh. Well, Fritz ain't here just now, but I'm expecting him soon. Tell Ramsey I'll give him his message and send him down.
Thanks. Thanks very much. Sure to do it.
What the blazes do you think they wanted me at the newspaper office?
What do you think? Probably figuring to pull a double cross on me. Pump you.
Why, he's loco.
You go down there, Fritz. See what he wants.
Huh?
If he gets too hard to handle, well, you know what to do.
Oh, sure, Laredo. Only...
You heard me. Now get going. I can't wait to find out what this is all about.
Say, Ellison, you got a minute?
Huh? Oh, you still hanging around Tioga Falls? You should have found out by this time that a loyal starved to death in this town.
Oh, I don't know. Looks now as if you might be needing one.
Well, what I want was a dead lawyer.
Dead lawyer? After the way you missed me that first day into Tioga? Or maybe you're a bum shot, but I think our local editor has hit the bullseye plumb center.
Huh?
Here, I thought you'd like to get a look at tomorrow morning's paper.
Why, that good-for-nothing
Looks
lying...
pretty bad in print, doesn't it? Confederate's confession implicates cafe owner in robberies. Yeah, looks like you're all done, doesn't it, Laredo? Why do you think Ramsey sent for your friend Fritz?
What are you trying to do? Scare me?
Well, if you're not scared, why don't you walk down to the newspaper office and face Fritz? Deny these things right in front of him.
Why, sure. Sure, I'll go with... You double-dealing liar. Hey, Fritz!
Yeah.
Fritz, come over here. And you, Mr. Lawyer, you stay right where you are.
Laredo, that big galoot who come in here and said they wanted me at the newspaper office must have been crazy. I waited more than an hour, and that editor wasn't even...
Did you tell Ramsey I engineered those raids?
You out of your head. Why should I give you away?
Oh, yes, Fritz. Why should you?
If I were you, Remington, I'd shut up.
But fortunately, you're not me, and I'm not you, because that gun-toter of yours said just enough in front of a few dozen people to put you in the calaboose. Hey, Marshal.
Marshal, are you sneaking low down?
Drop that gun, Ellison. Miss me again, Laredo, but I'll see if I can make my aim a little better. Now, Fritz, You don't want to end up worse off than your boss. Just take it easy. Because you and I are going down to the newspaper office and get a real confession.
You should have seen Chad. His arms like two windmills, his fists like two pile drivers. Why, I tell you, the man was magnificent. A perfect example of American manhood.
Oh, good night. With that kind of flowery prose, Kent, well, you ought to keep Cherokee here in Tioga and put him to work on your newspaper. Of course, not as a reporter. He got his facts a little wrong.
Oh, but he makes it sound so beautiful.
Well, what facts has he got wrong?
Oh, just a few essential ones. For example, I had only one fist flying. My other hand was well occupied wrestling that buzzard for his gun. Now, just one fist.
You can't blame that entirely on me. That saloon you sent me to for my Dutch courage treated me so well I was seeing double. And moreover, Mr. Remington, I was not wrong when I say that your brilliance, your sheer and unmatched genius, gave birth to the idea which caught that crook.
Cherokee's right about that, Chad. It was you who had the idea to print up a single copy of the paper with that phony headline to trick Ellison.
Maybe it was phony, but now you can run 3,000 copies of the paper with the same headline because it's true. And, Cherokee, how about you and me starting back to Dos Rios?
Right now, Chad?
Right now.
With all the ill fortune. While you were demolishing Ellison's saloon, I saved one full bottle from falling off a table and hid it under a chair. Can I go back down there for just a minute?
Nothing doing. I told you we'd stay just long enough to get our proof, and, Cherokee, I certainly didn't mean 100 proof.
Frontier Town, starring Tex Chandler, is a Bruce Ells production. Story and supervision by Joel Murcott. Direction by Paul Franklin. Music written and played by Ivan Ditmars. Be sure to be with us again, same time next week, for another fine action-adventure story with your favorite young Western star, Tex Chandler. This is Bill Foreman telling you that Frontier Town came to you from Hollywood. Frontier Town, the saga of the Roaring West. Frontier Town. El Paso, Cheyenne, Calgary, Tombstone. Frontier Town. Here is the adventurous story of the early West, the tamed and the untamed. From the Pecos to Powder River, Dodge City to Poker Flat. These are the towns they fought to live in and lived to fight for. Teeming crucibles of pioneer freedom. Frontier Town!
Ever hear of Dos Rios? Well, it's a saddle-stop cow town smack dab south and east of Denver and sprawls boisterously across the frontier. I live in Dos Rios. I'm the one and only lawyer there. Name? Chad Remington. Well, lawyer or no, in that frontier country, there's always something going on, something mighty interesting and doggone near always dangerous. Oh, not just rustlings and bank holdups, stagecoach and mail car robberies. Part of the time, our troubles come from what we lawyers might call our duly elected officers. Now, just a few weeks back, over in another little frontier town called... Here I am getting ahead of myself, and I guess I better be starting from the beginning. Well, after all that had been happening, I decided to take a day off, get the judge's daughter, Libby, to pack some sandwiches and ride out to the Painted Rimrock country with me. Well, we'd had a nice ride, a good lunch, and Libby and I we were talking things over.
I don't know about June, Chad. It's so soon.
Well, doggone it, Libby. With me, it's the sooner the better. It isn't as if this is going to come as a surprise to your father, and I... Uh-oh. Now, look who's coming.
Wait, who is that, Chad? Is it Cherokee?
It's the O'Bannon himself, in the flesh. And it's just gold pieces to gopher holes. He's not out riding just to exercise one of those horses from his livery stable. Now, wait a minute. Hey, Cherokee, over here.
He sees us. What do you think he wants?
I sure don't know. I paid him 2 months in advance for that office I ran from him up over his stable.
Easy there, Gladys. Whoa!
Oh!
I knew I'd find you two lolling in some romantic dell. Hold it, girl.
Well, if you knew it, did you have to come out to prove it? Having two people the right to commune with nature?
My dear Miss Libby, you can continue communing with nature, because if I say so myself, I am one of nature's noblemen. Yes, indeed.
Oh, go on. Mother Nature probably ran you out of the house years ago for peddling that rattlesnake oil of yours. Oh, what's up, Cherokee? Why'd you come out here heels over leather?
Because, my cherubic counselor, a telegram arrived for you.
Oh?
And since old Hank at the Western Union office said it was important, I thought I'd hit the saddle and try to find you. Here.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me, Libby. Well, this doesn't sound so good.
What doesn't sound so good? What did the telegram say?
Oh, I don't know if you remember Bill McCarty over at Medicine Creek. I'm sure your father does.
Carty? Isn't he the tax collector over in Comanche County?
Yeah, but he's not the county collector. He's a local tax collector for Medicine Creek. The telegram's from Bill, and from the little he says here, it looks as if he might need some legal advice.
Legal advice, I'll bet. Anytime anyone sends you a telegram, they don't want legal advice. They're looking for two-fisted help.
Oh, listen to the man.
Chad, would you mind telling me what it's all about? Why should the tax collector in another town in an entirely different county suddenly telegraph to you?
You can't tell much from what he's wired. Having filed the telegram at the Medicine Creek office, apparently Mr. McCarty was a little more than a wee bit cautious. But if I can read between the lines, Bill's mixed up in some sort of political shenanigans that involve the mayor of Medicine Creek.
Politicians, those I've met, not counting the sheriffs, rangers, and marshals, have been even more deceitful than the third-rate medicine man.
Well, you should know, Cherokee.
As a first-rate medicine man, Cherokee, and the owner of a second-rate livery stable, would you be inclined to lend me a horse and ride over to Medicine Creek with me?
That I would. That I would.
But Chad, we were talking about, well, you know. Now you want to pick up and... I guess I just don't understand men.
Well, Libby, I guess you understand one man a little too well. And he thinks the sooner we get started, the sooner I'll get back to have that little heart-to-heart talk with your father. So I'm all for packing up and getting started today. Well, sir, as it turned out, it was a good thing I didn't postpone my trip. Truth of the matter is, as it turned out, it was too darn bad I couldn't have gotten started a day earlier. Because while Cherokee O'Bannon and I were leaving streamers of red dust behind our pounding horses, the stage was being set in Medicine Creek for the big blow-off. As we pieced it together later, the mayor of Medicine Creek, the Honorable Richard E. Dalegood, had sent for his tax collector, Bill McCarty, and exploded his bombshell.
Now, is that clear, Bill? Mayor, do you realize what you're doing? You're actually raising taxes to 3 times what they were last year.
McCarty, I had you appointed as tax collector because I felt you were one man interested in seeing Medicine Creek grow. Man alive, that takes money.
Of course it takes money, but tripling the taxes isn't going to raise money. All it'll raise is trouble, maybe killings. You know what a bad season the cattlemen have had.
McCarty, either you collect those taxes or I'll have you impeached for malfeasance in office.
Impeach and be hanged. Go on, haul me into court. But I think when you realize what I'll tell that jury, it'll be you they'll impeach and not me.
There are a few other things I could tell a jury. Things like who killed Ralph Osborne.
Huh? You know blame well I didn't kill Ralph.
Do I? Well, I'm afraid any story I'd tell a jury would be thoroughly convincing. You'd better be leaving, McCarty. And if you come back without the tax money, the mystery of who gunned down Ralph Osborne will be finally cleared up.
Why, you... Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and goodbye.
Well. I wonder who I can appoint tax collector after your funeral, McCarty. Somebody who'd at least appreciate the way we... Crone, what are you doing in my office?
Well, Mr. Mayor, you handled our tax collector very nicely.
Confound it, Crone, I don't like you sneaking in my office through the back door.
Well, I'll tell you, Your Honor, I saw McCarty go into the Western Union office this morning and send a telegram. Then when I saw him heading for your office, I just thought I'd come in through the back and listen to what he had to say.
Well, I told you what would happen. You heard McCarty. He refuses to go through with it.
Yeah, I heard him. I heard you, too.
Heard me? What do you mean?
How far do you think we'd get accusing McCarty of bushwhacking Ralph Osborne? I'm afraid, Mr. Mayor, that you're foolish enough to have faith in human nature.
Huh?
If a jury really started to investigate Ralph's death, it might be me they'd build a scaffold for. And if they build it for me, my friend, they'd build another alongside of it. For you.
I knew I should never let you jockey me into a spot. Now, if McCarty talks to the ranchers and advises them not to pay the new taxes, everything I've spent 2.5 years working for will be blown away like so much tumbleweed.
Your Honor, you're absolutely right. But I have a feeling that Medicine Creek is badly in need of a municipal reorganization. And to start with, you'd better appoint a man to replace our tax collector.
For Pete's sake, Crone, don't you even think? If I throw McCarty out now, it's a cinch every landowner around here'd believe his story.
Oh? But how can they believe his story, Mayor? I mean, did you ever hear of a dead man talking?
Oh, now, don't you go to any trouble, Mrs. McCarty. Cherokee and I can wait until Bill gets home. We're not that hungry.
Well, then, Mr. Remington, can I fix you something to drink?
Mrs. McCarty, you are a woman of rare and little found perspicacity.
What would you like? Tea?
Well, Cherokee, aren't you going to answer the perspicacious lady?
Tea? On reflecting, my dear Miss McCarty, I've decided that perhaps Chad is right. I think it might be best if we wait until Mr. McCarty returns home. Yes, I do.
Well, you're not going to have long to wait, you see. Comes Bill now, just riding over the ridge of that hill.
Hey, certainly looks well, doesn't he?
Yes, he looks well enough, considering, but all this grief the mayor's been giving Bill has certainly done him.
Billy Blue Blazes, Chad. Did you hear those shots?
I sure did, Cherokee. Come on, Bill McCarty's been blasted plumb out of his saddle.
There he is, Chad. Raina.
All right, Cherokee, help Mrs. McCarty off her horse.
Chad, is Bill...
Yeah, he was gone before he hit the ground.
Those filthy killers. Those dirty, sneaking coyotes. They didn't even give him a chance to fight back. Well, I'll fix them. I'm going down and blast that no-good, crooked gambler myself.
Gambler?
That's what I said, gambler. That thieving crook called Crone. He's the one who's behind the mayor.
No, just a minute. No situation like this is ever cured by another killing. What's more, you have no way of knowing if it was this crone or anyone else in Medicine Creek who dry ghosted your husband.
Don't say that. Who else could it have been? Must have been that gambler.
Cherokee, I think you better help Mrs. McCarty back onto her horse.
Anything you say, Chad. Come on, Mrs. McCarty.
Let go. You take your hands off of me.
Here, Cherokee, I'll give you a hand. Look, if you're right about this gambler, Mrs. McCarty, we'll find out soon enough. When we do, I've got an idea I'm going to deal myself into his game. Except I'll be using my own deck. Every card marked with a cross we can put on his grave up on Boot Hill.
We'll return to the exciting second act of our frontier town adventure in just about 1 minute. And now, Frontier Town.
Well, you can see now what I meant when I said it was too blamed bad Cherokee and I didn't get to Medicine Creek a day earlier. Bill McCarty gunned down in cold blood almost at the doorway to his ranch. And Bella McCarty, Bill's widow, hysterically furious, and despite everything Cherokee and I could say, vowing she'd avenge her husband's brutal murder. However, while Leo Bannon and I were doing everything we could to quiet and soothe Bella McCarty, down at the mayor's office, an entirely different kind of scene was taking place.
A fine lot of good you did getting rid of McCarty. Now, believe me, Crone, there isn't a landowner in the whole district who isn't seeing red.
My, Mr. Mayor. A man of your perception is worthy of real political ambitions. How skillfully you keep your finger on the public pulse.
That's enough, you cheap tin horn.
Well, I must acknowledge that since tin horn is a synonym for gambler, you may be right. But you listen to me, you overweight muttonhead. You keep on like you're going, and this whole town is going to have an election. We'll not only elect us a new tax collector, we'll elect a new mayor.
Now, look here, Carl. There's no reason to go losing your temper at me.
All right. And suppose you just listen. Don't you think I know the ranchers are up in arms? Well, that's exactly what I want.
What you want?
You bet. Don't you realize what a cinch it'd be for us if they get mad enough to try shooting it out with the duly elected legal authorities?
Why, they wouldn't dare. We could throw every one of them in jail, and by the time they got out again, they wouldn't have any more ranches left than a porcupine has feathers.
Well. So you're finally getting some sense through your thick head.
So I'm finally getting some sense. But don't you think some of those ranchers are going to get some sense, too?
What of it? All you have to do is sit here in this office the taxpayers furnished so nicely for you and keep your eyes glued on that safe I loaned you. Because, Mr. Mayor, with the help of a few of my friends, it isn't going to be very long before that safe's so crowded with greenbacks it'll take a 20-mule team to move it.
Certainly, Crone knew what he was talking about. He had several friends in Medicine Creek, notably one gunslammer known as Baldy and another disreputable maverick who, for the time being, was using the name of Quirt. Well, despite everything Cherokee and I could do, McCarty's widow called a meeting of most of the taxpayers in and around Medicine Creek, and that's when Baldy and Quirt started sowing the seeds Mr. Crone wanted planted so badly.
Sure I'm right. There ain't no law no place that says we gotta let that mare bleed us to death.
Folks, Baldy's telling the truth. We're the citizens. We're the taxpayers. When all's said and done, it's us who makes the laws. So I say if we gotta have some new laws around Medicine Creek, let's make them. With Winchesters and 6 guns.
Bella, Mrs. McCarty, don't you realize what you're doing? You'll never get any place with mob law.
You don't have to pay taxes around here, Chad, so why don't you just keep out of this?
That's what I say. Well, how about it, neighbors? Are we going to organize the Taxpayers Protective League?
That's it? Now you're talking.
By the beard of St. Patrick, if he had one. Have you folks all been out in the pasture eating local weed? Be sensible. Listen to Chad Remington.
Do you think I'm enjoying this? Bill McCarty telegraphed me to come over and lend a hand. And now, more than ever, that's what I intend to do. If there's something wrong with the tax rates, you've got courts over here to...
Mr. Big Brain, you keep out of this. Yeah, keep out of this, and maybe you'd better keep out of Medicine Creek altogether.
If you consider that an order, Baldy, I'm not in the habit of taking orders. Particularly from someone who'd incite a group of people to break the law. A man who'd do that probably is a lawbreaker at heart.
Why, you big mouth bag of wind. I'll show you if I can give orders and make them stick.
The solar plexus, Chad, the solar plexus. Oh, that's it, Chad. That's the one. That's the one.
All right, now, won't you folks quiet down? Well, won't you listen to some sense, please? There. Now, I've got just one thing to say. I'll grant the taxes have been assessed, but you still have 10 days in which to pay them. I believe this whole matter can be settled legally. And with 10 days left, will you give me just 2 days to see what I can do before you all run the risk of committing suicide? Okay. That's all I want, just a chance. A chance to save the other women in Medicine Creek from joining Mrs. McCarty in wearing mourning.
Crone, I'm telling you the truth. Me and Quirt had the whole meeting sewed up until this lawyer got up in the soapbox and butted in.
So the ranchers aren't going to fight back, eh?
It sure don't look that way. They agreed to give Remington time to do something rather legally.
Yeah? Well, in that case, we're not going to waste any more time.
Huh? You know what he's talking about, Quirt? I sure don't.
If Remington talked them into not fighting back, we're fixing it so they will. So get the rest of the boys and oil up your guns. Medicine Creek's going to have a range war, and we're starting it ourselves.
Knock on them horses, boys. Don't let them critters get away.
That's the Lazy J boys coming now. Rein up.
Okay, now, let him have it.
You got the powder set, Baldy?
All set, boss, and the fuse is lit.
Okay, then, let's get out of here.
Cherokee, he's your friend. Can't you do something to make Chad stop? He's been pacing up and down like a caged catamount for the last hour.
Done all I could, Bella. Even offered him a drink of genuine in rattlesnake oil to soothe his nerves.
The only thing that'll soothe my nerves is some way out of this. If I hadn't talked the ranchers around here into not organizing, some of those men hurt and killed last night might still be here.
Well, now, there's no use crying over spilled milk.
It's not milk, it's spilled blood. If I could only figure some way of proving what we all know and then putting those weasels in jail where they'd be safe.
Chad, my boy, even jails aren't safe. Matter of fact, a lot of safes aren't safe. Yes, indeed. Learned that many years ago.
Well, that safe in the mayor's office seems to be burglar-proof, but, of course, being a burglar himself, maybe the mayor knows...
Wait a minute, Bella. What's safe in the mayor's office?
Well, the city safe. Safe he keeps all the tax money in.
Tax money? Since when does the mayor keep the tax money? The tax collector's supposed to keep that.
Really? Well, Bill always paid the tax money over to the mayor, who took charge of it.
Well, now, maybe the knob on that safe has the combination to a jail cell in addition to this safe.
Jail cell? Now, what earthly connection has a jail cell got to do with the combination to the safe?
I got a hunch it has plenty to do with it. And Look, if you and Bella will string along with me and pay a call on his honor, the mayor, there's a little bug I'd like you to put in his ear.
Chad, I'll do anything to help, but this doesn't even make sense. Bug in his ear.
Yeah, and what's more, if Mrs. McCarty and I go pay a call to the mayor, why can't you come with us and place the insect in the proper orifice yourself?
Because I'm going down and make a call of my own. I'm going to call Crone's gambling house.
You mean you're going to go down there and risk some of your hard-earned capital? Play faro or something?
Well, I am going to make a bet. A mythical bet. And after I make it, then I'll be able to find out if Crone's number comes up or mine.
Yeah. I've heard all about you, Remington.
I've heard all about you, Mr. Crone. In fact, that's why I paid you this call.
Do tell.
Uh-huh. I thought you'd like to know that your friend, the mayor, suddenly packed up and took the stagecoach out of town.
Well, why should I care if the mayor left town?
You know the answer to that better than I. But he was carrying 2 very heavy carpet bags.
Remington, I've been at this game too long not to know the only card you've got in the hole is a deuce. You're bluffing.
Well, then why not call my bluff by going over to the mayor's office with me and finding out?
Okay. I'll just take that bet. And if you have got a deuce in the hole, Remington, you're going to find yourself dead broke. Or just plain dead.
Well, Crone, the mayor isn't here, is he?
Maybe he's home.
And maybe he's halfway to the border now with all the money you 2 kept in that little tin safe.
You budge from there, Remington, and you're a goner. I'm going to call your bluff by opening that safe myself.
You know, Crone, I'm wondering how you happen to know the combination to the mayor's safe.
Keep on wondering, Remington.
Why, you double-crossing liar. Every penny's in here.
It didn't work, mister. But even if it had, it wouldn't have made any difference. You're through. So long, lawyer. You'll find your corpse at the bottom of the rapids.
Well, Crone, you can't say I didn't back my little bluff with a... But you haven't pulled that trigger yet.
You'll never live to say that again.
For a moment, Crone, I thought my last chip was down. Hey, Cherokee! Bella! Get in here!
Here we are, Chad. We've got the mayor with us.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Get over there.
Why, this is an outrage. Kidnapping the mayor. I'll have you all jailed for this.
You will, Your Honor? When are you going to do that? 30 years from now when you get out yourself? Because that's just about what the jury will give you when they find out that the most notorious gambler in town knew the combination to your safe and what was in it.
Chad, I hope I don't sound repetitious, but I want to compliment you again for that lovely little trick you pulled on the mayor and Carl Crone.
Oh, it's just little everyday psychology. A man who makes his living by chicanery generally is easy prey for chicanery. Well, for instance, take you. You made your living peddling that rattlesnake oil, and now you spend most every nickel you make buying some other kind of liquid poison.
Oh, is that so? Well, my barnyard Blackstone, I want you to know that I didn't always make my living vending patent medicines.
Oh, no?
Oh, siree. In my younger days, I was a stagecoach driver.
You don't say.
In fact, I was the best-known stagecoach driver in all Wyoming. I drove a stagecoach with only 2 wheels.
What? Only 2 wheels? What held it up?
Bandits!
Cherokee, just for that, you're going to eat my dust. Come on, get up there, boy. Get running.
Frontier Town, starring Tex Chandler, is a Bruce Ells production. Story and supervision by Joel Murcott. Direction by Paul Franklin. Music written and played by Ivan Ditmars. Be sure to be with us again, same time next week, for another fine action-adventure story with your favorite young Western star, Tex Chandler. This is Bill Foreman telling you that Frontier Town came to you from Hollywood.